Mentioned that is one of the top stories we're looking at, and shortly I'll also be speaking to Eric Odwor, who is the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Journalists. We'll be having that conversation about the safety of journalists really here in the country. We'll also be showing you the pictures and of course what went down on Monday night when GSU officers of course tried to flush out journalists from JKIA, and it was a very bad scuffle where many journalists there were actually injured and some of the equipment destroyed. We'll be looking at that top story later on here on the show. But I want us to get back to our conversation in regard with regard to Miguna's second deportation. And I want to start with my guest from City Center, that is Cliff Ombete. Cliff, let's just talk about this documents. Don't you think that it would have been easier for Miguna to actually just fill in the forms and just get into the country, because really he was at the point of weakness? Don't you think that it would have been better for him to sign these documents, get into the country and fight from within? Because right now where he's at, maybe he's in a worse, actually he is in a worse situation than he was when he was here in Kenya at the airport.
Let us agree on one thing first. The moment the state declared that Miguna was not a citizen, then technically at that particular moment, it means that Miguna does not have the dual citizenship, if we uphold their argument. Therefore, if then he comes back on a Canadian passport, according to them, at that particular moment, he does not have the Kenyan citizenship, so he must come in as a foreigner. Let's not argue and say that he has the dual citizenship, because at that particular moment, the state is looking at him as a foreigner. But look at what they have forgotten. The court said, please facilitate him with travel documents so that he can be able to come into the country. And if you're not able, then he can use his Canadian passport. The state then technically, and this is a kind of trap, they do not provide him with those documents. Why? When they can do it within an hour. So that they can have him in a position whereby they can control him. And if they're in a position to control him, they can revoke his visa at any time. They can refuse to renew it. And then, if they are still holding that he is not a Kenyan, then he cannot get employment. In the meantime, his case might take 2-3 years to resolve. If he cannot get employment, he cannot do politics, he cannot do anything. We know how much foreigners are limited to what they can do in this country. Why are we going to put him technically in that position then? Because in as much as we want to argue that there are people who have got passports, they can use this and that and use and that, at this particular moment they have deprived him, and when the court has told them provide him with, they have not done so. So then the advice would be that his position legally would be in a critical position, because first of all, if you want to tell him to regain his citizenship, there is no guarantee that they're even going to do it. They're saying that they are going to give him forms to fill it. It will take how long?
All right, so it's really unknown. You want to...
So that then puts us in a position that he is going to be in a position whereby he's at sea, nothing to hold on to.
Okay.
They might even reject it.
All right, let me hear the sentiments of Dr. You wanted to say something on that?
Right, no, I think Lawyer Cliff is bringing a very strong point. And on the issue of the assumption that the lawyer is making is that visa is not a traveling document. So if the court said facilitate him with traveling document, the assumption is if I give you a visa, I'm not facilitating your travel. Yet visa, we know that if you go to the US Embassy and I queued and I got my visa, you know that visa is a traveling document. And so that could be splitting hair. And then look at the possibility of how easy it is to get an order in our High Court. And so it's just a matter of minutes to get an order that while the case is going on, you see what I'm saying? While the case is going on, Miguna should be able to operate as a citizen.
As a citizen.
So I'm not seeing, because court have been willing and they are quick and effective to say that it could have dragged, and the dragging of case could have automatically mean that he is not facilitated. But finally,
but also on that point, you know, that is the ideal situation. There's the other separate conversation whether if indeed orders are granted that Miguna should be left to operate comfortably, if they will be respected. That's another.
But it's a self-employed legal practice is a self-employment. So if he gets a case and go to court, and the court had ordered that he can operate and he can practice law, then he can practice. He wasn't coming to... his profession is legal practice, and he has a sort of a private practice. He's not coming to work for government.
All right.
I didn't know that. Or he's not coming to start a business, though, of course, limited choice. But finally... yes, it is almost like a game theory where you don't trust the other person.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to win and gain advantage.
Yes.
Maybe Miguna and his legal team, very able. Cleveland Better, as one of the sharpest legal brain, are heavily leaning towards the court. The state, remember, as powerful as court is, the state also have a mandate to do things, whether they are reviewed by court to be legal or illegal, but they almost have the first bite.
Yes.
So that when they give you a form, of course, it will mean you have considered that you are not a citizen.
Exactly.
But you have a right to regain citizenship, because there is no question about that, that he is a citizen by birth, and if he lost, that is going by the state argument, if he lost his citizenship, he is able to regain. So then, to argue that if the state gave you that form, that this is still a trap, but you are at the airport. Meanwhile, they have given you the form, you are at the airport.
Yes.
I think it all, not to give too much benefit of doubt, the assumption is they are trying to facilitate your entry into the country.
In the ideal situation.
In the maybe ideal or probably in the likely situation, because you are at the airport. How else are you going to be processed?
All right. Let me come to Cliff Ombeta. And, you know, earlier I was speaking to Nelson Harvey. He brought us up to speed with some of the developments and the probability that Miguna may be deported back or, you know, brought back to Kenya. As his lawyers, what really is your next step? Because, you know, the orders that were given by the High Court, you know, they were disregarded. So what really is the next step for you as, you know, Miguna's lawyer? What options do you have?
We only have to go back to court. Apart from Mr. Miguna himself trying to force a move to come back, we also have to go back to court. And going back to court, we are going back to get orders probably and serve them on people who are just going to not obey them. Miguna has a case. Miguna was allowed by the court to come in. Miguna was given orders by the High Court, and the two judges who sat the two past days said that he should be allowed to come into court. One of the things is his right to be able to fight for his case. And once that had been given, and the state had ignored, then it was ordered again in the morning. The state ignored. It was ordered the third time, and we went there to serve the orders. Serve the orders when we were being beaten by the GSU officers last night. The only thing we can do is still come back to court, because that is where we only have hope. That is the only place we can be able to do what we can be able to do. That's the only place we can be able to exercise his rights, and his rights can be enforced. But we are dealing with rogue people here. When they see lawyers coming with orders, and one of the orders that in that order is that the lawyer should be given access to him throughout, and then they beat us up, chase us through the airport until we are thrown out. The only thing is go back to court and tell the court, this is what happened, and please, now that you had even sentenced these people and found out, I mean, you had convicted these people, please convict them further for these other offenses. And then the court, because it has given that order that Miguna be allowed back in the country, must see how to enforce that. Somebody must go to jail, because that's the only language they'll be able to understand. Nobody is going to agree to do anything, because you know why? They have been doing this kind of thing and nothing has been happening. Orders come about to arrest these people, nothing happens. So what do? They go back and sit and giggle and laugh and know that nothing can be done. Watasema atafanya nini? Let us ignore. And this is what happened yesterday. So when we have gone there, when they've thrown down the human rights lawyer who had food for Miguna, when they lock him up in a toilet, even if they hated him so much or did not like him so much, why lock him up in a toilet? At least give him a room, give him a blanket. The airport is cold. You can see how he's been sleeping. Are they treating him then as a human being? These are the things we need the court to look at and see that these people have been actually acting with impunity. And when the judge said they have been catwalking while we are babysitting with the court orders, this is exactly what is happening. So we are going to go and try and get another order and see whether it can be effected. That's the only place we can go. It's the only place we can move to. And people need to come up really and complain about this, because some of the lawyers that we know who are pro-state can only stand and watch. And they know that this is really not a good thing.
Not a good thing. All right. Thank you very much, Cliff Mbeta, for your time. We really appreciate your time here on News Center. We'll be following up, of course, on what happens, as you proceed on to go back to court. Coming back to my guest here in studio, as we wind up, what are your final thoughts? Just listening to what he has to say, the way that, Miguna was handled. What are your final remarks?
Right. A lot of people were mishandled. I hope they are fine, Cliff Mbeta and the other lawyers. They were roughed up, according to them, which is very unfortunate. Because the temples of justice, if we are a country that abide by rule of law, our temples of justice must have the last word, even whether you like it or not. So by them being roughed up, the journalists, I saw what is there, beating up a messenger. Because literally a journalist is a messenger. He has no dog in this fight.
True. And
is simply reporting our right of information and our even freedom of information and right to be informed.
Yes.
So those are very unexcusable offenses. And of course, we don't know what will happen. We are seeing court is saying that this is now about us. And I don't know why the government is kind of reluctant, because I think they have a very strong case in my view, even if it is for PR, that they have a strong case that Miguna had really lost his citizenship and not regained it. But court will not get to the merit until the orders that they have are actually adhered to. And well, for Miguna, it is a tough situation because you can see his anguish, medical restraint and all of that. At his age, those are things that can even maim somebody. But Miguna, as usual, will bounce back. He has bounced back. And I look at his pace. His pace is getting bigger in this country, because he's filling in some shoe. I saw people in Kisumu saying, Raila shouldn't come to Kisumu without Miguna. And that is how serious this Miguna issue is building him as a person.
Right.
And so probably just for encouragement and not to belittle the situation, what doesn't kill you make you stronger. And for sure, Miguna can take it. He's a big boy.
All right. Let's wait and see what's going to be happening in the next coming days. Thank you very much, Dr. Duncan Ojwang. He is an international law expert. Thank you for your time. All right. So we want to, of course, take a short commercial break. But like I mentioned earlier, apart from the Miguna saga, we're looking at another very critical conversation. And of course, that has everything to do with safety of journalists. You saw what happened on a Monday night when journalists were roughed up by GSU officers at a JKIA, something really that also concerned quite a number of Kenyans and even us in the field, really, of how safe journalists are when it comes to conducting and doing really their business. We'll be having that conversation with Eric Odwor, who's the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Journalists here in the country. Let's take a short commercial break. Don't go away.